this is impressive work, and I like the cake metaphor. But I want to try and contrast it with something, which is that I've heard other folks in this area say, you know, you've got to be careful when you let something out of the bag, because new stuff tends to get killed by stakeholders. And so you don't let it out of the bag until it's essentially impressive and done and you worked out the kinks, which is, from one perspective, contradictory to what you're saying. So I'd like you just to think about, muse on that.
And the one thing I was curious about, you put measures up there. I'd be curious what measures that you might have discovered in some of those cake slices.
Any other?
I just want to kind of poke a little bit at the idea that kind of some of the low-hanging fruit is places where you're already interacting, because we were having kind of a conversation before about the fact that a lot of things like rulemaking and public comment are sort of structurally built to be adversarial. And so how do you take that relationship that exists and transition it to something where you say, instead of saying, okay, you're going to try to pull information out of me, we're going to work together to do something.
Cool.
Okay, I'll take a stab at some of those first, and then Giovanni, feel free to chime in wherever. To answer the first question about launching something that's ready, I think our CIO is really kind of fascinated by the Google model. So the way that Google built their platform is not by determining 100 requirements, then building a model that fully captured all 100 of those requirements. That's Microsoft and their systems every year that they launch, and then there's huge problems with them every year because they try to make sure that they're developing all of their requirements at once. We're trying to take more of the Google model approach, which is, what are your top 3 requirements? Stick to those, and if you have 100, great, but we're only going to do your top 3. And then we'll let it grow from there and see what works and what doesn't, and let it grow over time. If you're going to start small, fail small, start big, fail big. So that's kind of his philosophy in that area, which is what we're trying to follow and how we move forward. For the second question, what measures? I think that that's a huge question, obviously, for the entire community right now, is what types of metrics are we using to measure this progress. But one of the things that we're trying to do from the beginning is bring in the CFO shops that are understanding performance at the organization and engage the experts. I mean, CIO shops aren't necessarily experts at metrics and measures for things outside of IT. And we don't expect OPA to be an expert at measures for legal. But the folks that really try to do that for the whole organization are the CFO folks in general. And it can be different depending on how you allocate roles and responsibilities to your organization. But it's important to bring in those folks that are involved in the performance activities for your organization and tie in open government metrics to those metrics. And then to answer the third question about where to engage, about the question about engaging where participation is already happening, I'll just give you an example. So at Forest Service, they have a function where they have a bunch of NEPA requirements, Environmental Preservation Act requirements that they have to meet every year, or through several of their programs. And they were required to participate with the public in finishing those NEPA assessments, but they did it in such a way where there was a ton of FOIA requests and a ton of lawsuits that came out of it because the public didn't get to see the process. And so they were already required to participate, but they weren't using technology and transparency to do that. So what they did is simple. They just put it online and made it more transparent so that folks could see what they were doing when they were doing it. And FOIA requests have gone down significantly. I think they've already demonstrated nearly $8 million in savings over the last year and project that they're going to save close to $12 million. So sometimes the answer isn't necessarily finding new places to engage. It's finding where you're already doing it, and there's huge pains for the employees. And a lot of that cost is reduction in time that was required to get those folks to sift through papers and Excel spreadsheets and all this other crud that, they didn't. It was FOIA requests are the worst thing to a federal employee most of the time. So just put it out there, and then you don't have to spend your time doing that. Giovanni, did you have anything to add?
I think you did a great job. And in the interest of time, I just wanted to conclude, just to give you an idea of where we're going. Being at the Department of Transportation, it was only natural. We're going to try to get some of these travel portal type of platforms where we're going to bring people together. Interesting enough, we checked last week, travel.gov is already taken by GSA. So we're going to have to find something a little bit more catchy. But that's the type of direction we're going to go in that ties, I guess, in all of the concerns about bringing people together, the metrics, et cetera. So stay tuned for that.